And you're watching the Laidback Bike Report. Well, it's a treat to have you all with us this month. Hello to everyone. We are so excited to bring you our show today. Let me give you a little intro about who's going to be on the show today. We've got a bunch of stuff going on. First of all, from Portland, Oregon, we have Mel Birge, who's going to talk to us about the Pacific Trike Fest. Our featured guest today is Kevin Belanger. He is Belanger from Rails to Trails Conservancy, and he's going to talk to us about a bunch of stuff about trails and the very new venture they have going called the Great American Rail Trail. We have our buddy Jon Hodkin, otherwise known as InnerTuba. He now, as many of you know, has been traveling on his trike and trailer with his tuba all throughout Iowa, and I think we find him today actually a little bit over the border in Minnesota. So we're going to get an update from Jon and find out what's gone on since RAGBRAI, which is where we left him. We have our buddy John Williams from London to talk about his recent travels to France for the World HPV Championship. He's made a video, as he does, which is great, and he's going to talk to you about all of his trip and the making of that video too. So we look forward to talking to Jon. We've got Denny Voorhees with the Sports Report. We got a bunch of stuff in sports to talk about today. I think some stuff you're going to be interested in. We've got a news and announcements section at the end. Brian couldn't be with us today, so we've included some news towards the end. Lots of interesting stuff going on, including something big coming from TerraTrike that I think you'll be interested in. So stick around for that. And of course, our viewer submissions. Always get some great stuff, pictures and some talk about what's going on from our great viewers around the world. So stick around for that as well. Now, this show is a complicated affair. It's something that takes more than just me to put on every month. And so let me introduce you the guys who help me out time and time again with their hard work. We've got, first of all, Doug Davis. You guys know him as the owner of Bicycle Evolution in Dallas. Hey, Doug. Doug, you are muted. Yeah. Anyways, there he is. Doug saying hi. Let's go to Denny Voorhees, our sports director from Sayre, Pennsylvania.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Good to have you here.
Denny, and back with us after a hiatus, playing Santa Claus for a few months, Christmas in July kind of thing, I guess. It's our good friend Larry Varney. Hi, Larry.
Hi, everybody. Ho, ho. I'm glad to be back.
And right from Cold Spring, Kentucky, there's Larry. It's good to have you back, Larry. And as you guys know, pretty much every month from Salzgitter, Germany, our buddy Lars Kamm, and director of the show.
Hi, folks. Good to be here.
It's good to see you again, Lars. And the media wrangler, the dude in Jackson, Mississippi, it's Trey Burgoyne. Hey, Trey.
Hello, everybody. Good to be here.
And it's wonderful having you. All right, guys. So let me just remind you all, if those of you who haven't been with us before, and even if you have, that we have a live chat that accompanies this live webcast. It's found just to the right of your screen if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're on mobile, you might see it below your watch screen there a little bit. And if you happen to be watching us from BentRider or Facebook or from our webpage, you might want to click through on the link that takes you to YouTube, and there you will see the live chat. So please avail yourself of that. ask your questions of our guests. You can chat amongst yourselves or with our panelists. So hop on there. Tell us where you're calling from. And I've got a bunch of people on there already today, calling from everywhere. Is that John Fenton? I'm not sure what AYR is, but it's nice to see you. And let's see who else we got. Marco Ropers. Hey, Marco, we haven't seen you for a very long time from the Netherlands. Good to see you up there, Marco. CJ Belgrave. Good to see you as well. So, guys, just hop on there, and as we get to our guests, feel free to ask those questions. All right, and if you would, it's important to us, please like, subscribe, and if you want to learn more about the Laidback Bike Report, look for that little eye in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. It'll take you to our website, learn a lot more about the Laidback Bike Report. So let's move along to our sponsors. Man, we really appreciate these guys every month helping us out, supporting us financially and in every other way. First of all, TerraTrike, makers of exquisite recumbent parts and accessories for your bent. And trailside.bike, a fine recumbent bike shop on the Withlacoochee Trail in Florida. And Cruise Bike, designed for the cyclist who wants to ride farther, climb faster, and adventure more. All cruise bikes and frame sets ship free in the USA. And Lightning Cycles, the aerospace designed and race across America record-only recumbent you have always wanted. All right, guys. So today we're going to roll it out with a little jaunt to Portland, Oregon, where we're going to find Mel Birge. Mel's a friend of ours who happens to own Recumbentpdx. He is an amazing promoter of all things trike, and this time he has decided to swing for the fences. Let's check in with him and find out more about the Pacific Trike Fest. Mel, is that you? Are you there?
That is me. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just fine.
Fantastic.
So it's great to have you on, Mel. You know, I've wanted to have you on for a long time, and this is a really good way to get started.
You just faded out on me. I can't hear you. Can you hear me? Nod your head if you can hear me. I cannot hear a word you said. You just went dark on me. All right, so I have no idea if you can hear me, so I'm going to look at the private chat and see if I can answer. We can hear PDX. Fantastic. So I have no idea what Gary's saying, so I'm just going to give my little pitch for it, which is we're super excited for the Recumbent Trike.
Are you?
You're
How
back.
excited are you?
I'm
excited
hear
to
you.
be with you because I don't know what just happened. Go ahead. I was just going to ask you.
Did you hear any of those swear words?
No, that must have been when I was gone. That's why I left, actually, Mel. Sorry, Mel. I apologize, everyone. Please tell us about the Pacific Trike Fest.
Well, first, Gary, let me say how much I appreciate you having us on the Laidback Bike Report. As you know, it's been a super big dream of mine to be in front of your. I think what is Nielsen's like 100 billion viewers. So super excited for me to be on network TV for the first time. So thank you for that opportunity. Pacific Trike Fest is just kind of a celebration that we're going to have on October 5th. Our model for it, which Gary has been to, Lars has been to, is Spezi in Germany, which is just a big party. We're bringing all of our vendors in. We're bringing in HP Velotechnik. We're bringing in CatTrike, Sunseeker, TerraTrike, Schwabe Tires, Lem Helmets, Sport Crafters. Just a bunch of folks are coming in, and as well as a bunch of support organizations, which I'll get to in a moment. But the idea is for you to come to meet the manufacturers here in Portland, Oregon, and to have an opportunity actually to ride. So while we will have displays that you can go and look and touch, and you can talk to the folks from each of the manufacturers, just as importantly, we're going to have a demo track, and we're going to have about 50 demo trikes. We're going to have regular trikes. We're going to have electric trikes. We're going to have adaptive trikes. So in addition to all the manufacturers that we're having, we're also going to have the folks from the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, from the Davis Finney Parkinson's Foundation, from the Ride Ataxia folks, as well as a bunch of super sweet vendors here in Portland who are going to come to provide snacks and all sorts of fun, healthy treats for people. So if you are within a day's drive of Portland or a day's flight of Portland, then come join us on October 5th. You can learn more information about it at pacifictrikefest.com. That's where tickets are available. And I don't know, Gary, if you can hear me, but this is an opportunity to let people know. If you put in Trike 50, that's TRIKE, the number 50 in the discount code, then your tickets are half off. So
Trike 50.
Yeah, that's a little treat for being Laidback Bike Report watchers, because I mean, I'm not at all into pandering. You know me. I mean, other obviously than the pander hat, but just for you, I do.
To be fair, Mel, I've never known you to do anything but pander. So honestly, 50%, that's wonderful. I think that's great. So
do you like the pander hat?
Right. You didn't have that hat on when we were practicing. So I appreciate that. Now, let me ask you a couple questions I think maybe on people's mind. I think this is a wonderful opportunity. And by the way, the Laidback Bike Report is within 1 day's flight, and we will be there. In fact, Lars is going to be flying in to visit for a couple weeks in October, and he and his wife Marion are going to be accompanying Marilyn and myself to Portland to help cover this event. So we look forward to, as well as Mel, looking forward to having you guys come. We look forward to seeing a lot of our viewers there. Mel, tell us why you decided that there was a need for a Pacific Trike Fest. What's the idea here?
Well, you know, if you look at the trike business, you know, we're a niche business, and anybody who needs a trike knows where to find us, but there are so many people out there who don't know the benefits of trike riding. So, you know, whether you have multiple sclerosis, if you are recovering from stroke, if you are an amputee, if you have knee surgery, hip surgery, back surgery, cervical fusion, I mean, all the things that you probably, your viewers know about, but a lot of people aren't aware of. What we're looking to do is to broaden the awareness of what trike riding can do for people. So as I said, I mean, our model here is Spezi, which is just this fantastic party held in Germany every year. So we know, you and I have been there together. It's a super lot of fun, and that's kind of the spirit and the vibe that we're looking for.
Very good. All right. So you hope to get people to attend that are either trike riders, potential trike riders, of course, and that those that are regionally located, I guess you said, within a day's drive would make some sense.
Yeah.
And if they're interested enough, even a flight ticket to PDX. Yep. Is what they call the airport there, might not be out of range. So, all right, we're going to of course list the links that you mentioned in the description below, as we always do, so folks will know how to attend. And if they have any questions, where would they contact you for those questions and how?
Well, so obviously you can go to the pacifictrikefest.com. So it's www.pacifictrikefest.com. Or you can send an email to fun, F-U-N, fun@pacifictrikefest.com.
Fun@pacifictrikefest.com. Okay.
Because it's trike riding and it's all about fun.
Right. And for our viewers, as Mel said, Trike 50 will get you a nice 50% discount on those tickets. Mel, let's finish up if I could. Can you guys give me a shot of Mel there? If you guys take a look at Mel at his shop, that's Recumbentpdx behind him. If you could just give me your elevator speech on what you do at Recumbentpdx there.
You know, the pitch that we give to folks is that we believe we are the largest recumbent trike shop west of the Mississippi, and our big thing is test riding. So we believe that, trikes are new to many people and they're very expensive. And we don't want people to make a mistake. So we have over 30 demo trikes on our showroom floor. In fact, everything you see on the floor behind me is a demo. So we have demos with schlumps, we have demos with pinions, we have demos with roll-offs, with steps, with mid-drive motors, with all sorts of adaptive devices, so that when you come into our shop, you don't have to imagine what it would be like to ride a trike that meets your specific needs. You can take that out for a demo ride. And following up on that, one of our rules is that, obviously there's no charge for demo rides, and we tell people, in our shop, you can ride them as long as you want, as far as you want, and as often as you want until you know what you want.
Perfect. And yeah, I can tell you, I've been there. Mel has got a bunch of trikes, and you guys could see hanging from the ceiling. He's got these winches that he got. And how many winches? You have like 100 winches or something?
On the main floor here, we've got about 30 winches. So generally at the beginning of the season, we'll have anywhere from 120 to 125 to 150 trikes in stock. So, beginning of the season, we generally have about 100 cat trikes, not quite a couple dozen HPs, and then a smattering of some of our other trikes that brands that we carry, including Sunseeker, Greenspeed, as well as we have a complete inventory of parts, because when our customers buy from us and they bring a trike back and say, I've broken the following, we don't want to say to them, oh, well, it'll take 3.5 weeks to get that part from Europe. We say, we have the part in the basement, drop it by, and there's a decent chance it'll be done in the next couple of days.
All right. Very good. Mel Birge at Recumbentpdx talking about the Pacific Trike Fest. Mel, a pleasure having you on. We will talk soon, I'm sure. We look forward to coming out there and seeing you in a few weeks. Take care. Thanks.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You're very welcome, Mel. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. So that was Mel Birge. Let's move along to the featured segment today. I think I can speak for the majority of our viewers when I say that rail trails play a fundamental part in the enjoyment of our riding events. With the build out of so many trail options these days, we can safely ride through both rural and urban settings for a few hours or for longer tours as these trails become increasingly connected. The ultimate goal of riding across the USA via trail has not yet been realized, but now seems to be within reach. Today we chat with Rail Trail Conservancy's Kevin Belanger and learn more about their exciting Great American Rail Trail project. Kevin, hello.
Hey,
Good
Gary.
to have you on.
Good to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
It is something that we've wanted to do for a long time, and we're going to get into it in a little bit. But I think the intersection of recumbent biking and Rails to Trails Conservancy is an important one, and I think that's where we're going to go today to kind of flesh that out a little bit. So, first of all, let's talk a little bit about you, if we could. Tell us about what you do for Rails to Trails Conservancy.
Yeah, so my role here is I'm a trail planner, which is a job that I never knew existed, and it's the only job I could possibly imagine having, which is great to be in. So I do a lot of the planning work. So I help the early stages of getting trails developed. So helping with mapping, helping with feasibility studies and concept plans, going throughout the country in different communities and having public meetings and talking to agency folks. Really all of the preliminary stuff before the trail actually gets built.
All right. So how about Rails to Trails Conservancy itself? Tell us about its mission. What is it that it does?
Yeah, so Rails to Trails Conservancy, we were founded in 1986 with the mission of transforming former rail lines into multi-use trails. They found that there was a rash of rail lines being abandoned. So it was, instead of letting them go, they're good public amenities. So making sure they stay in the public use there. So we now, our real goal is making a nationwide network of trails from former rail lines. And the second part of our mission is building healthier places for healthier people. So we don't only work on rail trails anymore. We work on trail building and community building at a larger scale. Rail trails provide the, as you were just saying, the ability for people of all abilities to use trails because rail lines were relatively flat. So rail trails tend to be similar. We want to create that similar experience, though we're not hard pressed that every trail needs to be a rail trail. And those aren't the only trails we help work on. But that's our major mission here.
Okay, so yeah, I guess I didn't know that second part. So more, so like walkable communities, that sort of thing. Is that what the second part of the mission is?
Trails in general. So not just rail trails, but building ways and helping trails through towns, outside of towns, on former utility corridors, on etc.
Okay, so like municipal parks, like here in Columbus, we have rail trails. We also have municipal trails that are very taken care of by the park system. So you would be like a resource to those folks who are anticipating building out trails like that?
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. A resource to help provide technical assistance. And really a major part is also getting people out and using trails, right? Getting the trail use experience out there.
All right, I'm a big fan. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Let's talk about your funding. Are you funded by donors? How do you get government money? Tell us where your funding comes from.
Yeah, good question. So I did some research before coming on because I didn't know fully myself, but our funding comes from roughly 30% membership. So you can become an annual member of Rails to Trails. If you go to railstotrails.org, you can see that on there. 40% or so come from other contributions. So major donors, smaller donors outside of the annual membership fees. And then roughly 15% of our funding comes from grants and contracts to fund the kind of work that I do and our other team members do. And then the rest of it comes from corporate sources and other income. But a large part is membership and contributions, which is how your viewers can help the mission of Rails to Trails Conservancy.
Perfect lead into the next question, which is going to be, how can our viewers help you? Now, before we get you to answer that question, I've been a fan, as I told you, for a long time. And one of the wonderful things you get when you belong to Rails to Trails Conservancy is, that great magazine comes out. Well, is this about, what, 5-6 times a year? I'm not sure.
Quarterly.
Quarterly. Okay, so maybe 4 times a year. Really, it's a great rundown of folks that are involved and the trails that you guys can ride on, and then you're going to get a few mailers in the mail about how can you help, but they're always giving you good stuff, and like this last one I got. This is awesome. Can you guys see that? It's kind of overblown there, but yeah, we're going to talk about the Great American Rail Trail. Kevin and I are shortly, the trail that they're going to try to put together across the country, but nice map that came in that last mailing. So all right, so what's the process if viewers that are watching us right now, Kevin, and they don't know how they can support you? Tell us how they go about doing that.
Sure. So obviously the major thing is helping support our mission through donations if you're able to. So as I said, railstotrails.org is the place to find that. But outside of that, it's really going out and using trails, talking to people about the trails. If you become a member, as you said, our magazine is great. Our online presence is even broader and more expansive than that. Our blog is really great. We've got some great info on the Great American Rail Trail, which I'll tell you about in a minute.
How about the app, the Trail Link app?
Yeah, thank you, Gary. You're a professional.
I love you guys. Yeah, you guys are
yeah. Traillink.com is absolutely the place to go. That has all of the trails that fit the multi-use category across the country. So right now there's more than 2,000 rail trails around the country, but there's over 32,000 miles of multi-use trails in the United States. So traillink.com catalogs those trails, provides really great descriptions, how you can access the trail, great spots along there. So traillink.com is your place to go. It's a subscription-based service, so you can get certain ones for free, and you can become a member as well and get access to downloading all of the files, the maps, etc. from there.
Very good. Thank you for that comment, Bill. Yes, they are great. All right. I guess what I'd like to do now is to talk more specifically about recumbent riders and rail trails. So Anyone who rides a recumbent bike or trike on rail trails or any trails knows that they are a huge part of the constituency using trails. And I'm kind of wondering about, does Rails to Trails Conservancy understand that constituency? Is there any outreach, or should there be some outreach? What can we do to create closer ties between the recumbent world and the trail systems that you guys work on?
Yeah, great question. Recumbents are huge. We hear about it a lot. So the folks, your listeners and beyond, are reaching out to us and telling us how important recumbent bikes are. So we hear that, we respect that, we love that, want to see more of them on trails as the variety of mobility options they give. So yeah, keep telling us about that, keep posting about that, keep telling folks that recumbents are an option on trails. Yeah, I think there could and should be more interaction. I don't really know what that looks like yet between Rails to Trails and recumbent bikes, but keep going out there on the trails. The more people see it, the less head turning it is. Sometimes folks are like, what is that three-wheeled bike on the ground with the big flag sometimes? Yeah,
you'll see. I think you'll find that that riders are huge advocates. Well, they're huge advocates for what they ride, of course. We love to talk about the bikes and trikes that we ride, and love to talk to other people that we meet on trails and elsewhere on the roads. And I think a large portion of our audience also are big time advocates, as am I, for Rails to Trails. So yeah, maybe it's more like what we can do for you, because what you do, I think, is important for all of us. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about the trails before we get into the Great American Rail Trail. Let's see. Here we go. Bill McBride had a question. Do you have an idea? You may not have researched this. The rough cost per mile to convert a railroad line?
Gosh, that really depends on several things, including who owns the rail line, whether it needs to be acquired into public use or if it's already in public use, so the acquisition cost. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to give you a number here because it also depends on urban areas versus rural areas. Building trail, depending on your surface type, if it's a brown field or a Superfund site, perhaps they're going to have environmental remediation costs. So it really depends. We have numbers anywhere from, gosh, like 50,000 a mile to $1 million a mile, and it fully depends on what you're looking for.
All right. And Bill, and also our panelist Doug really are probably interested in this question as well. So as you probably are aware, recumbents, especially trikes, are a little bit wider than the average bike. And Doug is a big-time velomobile advocate. I'm not sure if you know what a velomobile is, but it's a fully fared trike, basically. They're relatively wide, and they also use trails all the time, Kevin. So sometimes the access points, there are bollards or gates on trails that are meant to, I think, restrict access for motorized vehicles, where you have to kind of go around a couple of gates or something. But they also sometimes make it very difficult for these wider bikes and trikes to get through. Are you aware of this? And do you know who we might be able to talk to, or do you know who to talk to maybe help resolve these issues?
Yeah, great question. And you hit it on the head. It's so that motorized vehicles don't make their way onto the trails. But I think the way that they have been built in the past has been limited in view to a upright bike in a way that does make it much more difficult, if not fully excludes recumbent bikes. Each trail is run, managed, owned by the entities that perhaps it's the county, the city, a state. So unfortunately, there's not just a one-stop shop to say, this is how we widen these bollards. But getting that word out more, I think we could do a better job in our early planning as well of saying we do some design guidance for things, and we could do a better job of explaining why, yeah, the bollards are necessary to keep cars out of there. But making it. Yeah.
I think as you become more of an umbrella organization for the other trails, that you kind of talked about, that could be a very useful thing where you can set standards for newer trails, at least for, I guess, someone coming up, a municipality or state wanting to build a trail, maybe don't know how to go about it, looking for the standards that other people use. That could be very helpful, I think, if you guys would have the standards that would be a little bit more amenable to recumbent. So let's keep that in mind. Maybe we can work on that a little bit.
Thanks for the question, Bill.
Okay. Now, here's Sebastian Santilli. Is that legal? I heard that railroads belong to the government and you can get in trouble. I'm not real clear. I think he's talking about maybe how you guys acquire trails. Can you real quickly, Kevin, talk about how that works, how you acquire the trails or the land, whatever, from the trails, for the trails?
Sure, yeah. Rails to Trails is fully legal. It's a process that every rail line is owned by its own entity. So how the government may have been involved in the past in terms of how rail lines were built, it's not how they are owned now. So when a rail line becomes abandoned, it's fully legal to turn it into a trail. There's a statute called rail banking that allows rail lines to be put into, I guess, a bank is a term you could use, but saying that it could be used for a trail in the interim period. If a rail ever wants to come back to use that corridor, they have the first right there. But then you could potentially build a rail with trail next to that. It doesn't happen very frequently where a rail line comes back from being out of service. So yeah, it's legal. It's fully legal, which is good.
All right. And Kat Corrett says hand cycle people can't get up to lift the trike through those weave gates. So yeah, not just regular recumbents and velomobiles. The folks on hand cycles also would have difficulty accessing trails. So kind of a big deal, I think, for a number of people, Kevin. So we'll see if we can stay on that. Trey was talking about this earlier when we were doing a couple practice sessions, Kevin, about those repair stations, which I think are marvelous, and we're starting to see those pop up on a lot of trails. Folks, if you don't know what Trey's talking about there, many of the trails that we see now have a stand with bicycle repair. There's a stand to put a bicycle on, and then a pump and tools that are attached by cables. And so the stand is really not adequate for a recumbent bike or a trike. And what Trey has brought out is the cables are, even though you may have your recumbent or a trike on the ground and work on it, the cables maybe aren't long enough to get around the wider vehicle, again, the wider kind of vehicle. So we talked with Kevin a little bit about this earlier, and maybe that's something else we can look into, right, Kevin?
Yeah, I appreciate the idea, Trey, because sometimes those have the stands where you pick your bike up, but recumbent bikes are often maybe heavier, or you're not able to do that. So yeah, I think having the longer leash on the tools is perhaps the best solution for making those as universal as possible.
And one more from Bill, in terms of finding a solution for those gates. He says the Western Maryland Rail Trail uses swing gates, and my trike can go right under it. So there's
awesome.
There's a nice one. Let's pop a MCALA 7293. Little Miami River Trail is a national jewel. It is, and I ride that one as well here in Ohio. Let's see what we got. Rail trails in Las Vegas, Nevada prefer flat ground and paved. I'm not sure about the question mark, but yeah, I think that's, Kevin talked about that. In general, rail trails are that way. Okay, and Bill, one more, good questions. Have you considered urging Amtrak to have stops at rail trail heads? What do you think about that?
I think that would be amazing. It's going to be incredibly difficult based on the extent of the Amtrak system, especially when you get through rural areas. I was trying to do a cross-section of the Great American Rail Trail and where Amtrak stations exist to see where people could get on and off without having to perhaps bike or walk the whole thing. I recently went from Frankfurt, Germany to Strasbourg, France, or vice versa last summer, and it was amazing. Twice in that trip, we just took a train because our bikes were really heavy, we were tired, and it was just so convenient. I don't think that that's going to happen anytime soon, unfortunately, in the States, but it's important to look at. For instance, if you take the Great Allegheny Passage and the C&O Canal, a lot of people go up there, up to Pittsburgh with their bikes on the Amtrak and bike back down, and it's a great system, and vice versa. So yeah, I think we should be pushing for that more.
Yeah, absolutely. Interestingly, Lars and my wife, myself, and another German friend last year rode probably a lot of what you rode as well. We went on the along the Rhine from in Germany all the way through Switzerland and went through Strasbourg as well. It was beautiful, and we did use the train system a bit. But just to let you know, you are not. The trail system in the U.S. are not the only ones that are having to grapple with recumbent issues as opposed to upright bike issues. We did have some trouble on the trains in Germany. It was partly an experiment to see with our trikes, especially. We got on the train sometimes, and sometimes we couldn't because of the extra size and the way you sometimes have to wait for certain trains. It was an experience. It was great. We had a great time, but yeah, you're not alone in dealing with these issues as a company or organization, I guess I should say. All right, let me see. I guess we're going to go. Oh, and do you know Mel? Did you already know Mel? He says hi and welcome back to Oregon. I
used to live in Portland. I grad school at the University of Oregon and worked for a few years in Portland. I'm from DC, which is why I'm back out here, but of course I miss Oregon. I come back every year if I can to visit friends and family. So hello. Hi, Portland.
Hello, Mel. All right. So, all right. Okay. The other kind of technical question about the trails I had was having to do with e-assisted bikes, not just recumbents, of course, but it's a huge part of what recumbent biking and triking is becoming. So I'm guessing this is on the radar of the Rails to Trails Conservancy in terms of overall rulemaking and trail designing and such. What has been your experience, and what do you see coming up as far as e-assisted biking and rail trails?
Yeah, I really see e-assisted biking as a huge, it's a major growing section of the bike market. And as I said on that trip in Germany and France, I feel like I saw almost every older couple I saw, that one or both of them were on an e-bike, and it just seemed to level the playing field, and it was a great solution. So there's some controversy among some trails whether e-bikes might provide more conflict on a trail than should be. At RTC, we really believe that mobility options are huge. So we want to support e-bikes, and we want to have decisions being made at the state and local levels. So we're not going to put out a policy saying that all trails should require or should allow e-bikes. We think that that is a local decision, and depending on where your trail is and how busy it is, et cetera. So you can find our policy paper on our website, railstotrails.org, and we have a toolbox and a resource library. You could find that on there.
All right, very, very good. All right, let's get on to the final subject, but an important part of what you are doing now at RTC. Let's talk about the Great American Rail Trail, and if we can start the slides, there we go. And why don't you take it from here, Kevin? Just talk a little bit about what this is about, and then if we have questions, we'll kind of pop in, if that's okay.
Yeah, please. So this is obviously what I'm super excited about. I'm so glad that you all asked us to come on and talk about it. So the Great American Rail Trail has been a vision of ours for a really long time. You can see the map here. If you could just stay on this one for a little bit. This really is a vision to connect the country in a way that we haven't in an east-west capacity, to do fully walkable, fully bikeable, fully separated from moving vehicles all the way across the country between DC and the Pacific Ocean. This map actually has been extended all the way out towards the Pacific Ocean on the Olympic Peninsula there. So the trail right now, we noticed over time that trails were kind of forming a route across the country. We didn't want to get out ahead of it, so we really wanted to wait until a number of routes were over 50% complete on their own. So when I started about 3 years ago, one of my first tasks was diving into the routes that we had thought about in the past, seeing what new trails had been built, seeing what new trails are in the planning process of being built. And we determined, with the input of all 12 states plus the district that go across the route, that this seems to be the most logical way to get across. So it's 52% complete right now, which means that about 1,900 miles are finished. And those trails, as I said, are fully walkable and bikeable. Surfacing is different, depends. This won't be a fully paved trail, but it will be flat and smooth enough to bike on. So that's one of the goals there. It's about about 1,700 miles left to go. So if you go to the next map, please, Trey, you can see that the dark green are where trails exist now. And then the light green is kind of a real rough idea of where the planned trails will go. And some colleagues and I reviewed hundreds of local plans. We've called folks from almost every county, city, conservation board, natural resource district, all of the different entities across this route to really understand the state of the trails that are there now and how the trails could be connected. So I'd say, gosh, roughly 40% or so of the gaps that you see here already are in a public planning process, which means that there's a route on a map somewhere that people have been talking about building. Sometimes that even has money. Some trails are being built right now. This year we'll add a number of extra miles to this route. The goal of this is to just continue to see more miles built. So in May, we launched here our route assessment, which you can find on our website, railstotrails.org/Great American Rail Trail. And you can see how the route would go across the country, talk about all the trails that...
Let me come back to you a second, Kevin. Go ahead and hold that up again so they couldn't see that.
Oh, yeah.
We had the slide up there. There you go. So
here you go. The route assessment. This is only one piece of it. It's a pretty big document. Railstotrails.org/Great American Rail Trail. If you are wonky and want to see the details inside of it. Otherwise, that page has an interactive map that you can go to. And that is where you can zoom in, see the trails, get to their trail link description, get to the individual trails website to learn more about potential closures and how you can support those trails as well. This is composed of 130 plus existing trails. So we're not owning the trails. We are helping elevate the existing trails and connect them to each other. So in that, we need help, obviously, but each of these trails needs help building and maintaining what they have. So
right, let's, if we can, Kevin, just stop for a second,
please,
and cover a couple of questions. This one, so any organized Rails to Trails racing events, you do have some kinds of events I know that you've done, and are they fundraising events? Tell us about events that you might organize.
Yeah, so over time we've done what we've called the Sojourn, which is a series of rides that take you long distance. You can camp and hotel rooms along the way. We're not doing those right now. We've kind of put a pause on those as we focus on our Trail Nation projects, which is really the trail network building in 8 specific places around the country, and 9 now, including the Great American Rail Trail. So we'll continue to provide technical assistance all around the country. We're focusing on those, and we're not pulling off big events at the moment. We think that market is pretty good, but we may consider reopening those in the future.
Understandably. Thank you for that question, Stephen. And let's see here. Bill asks about the East Coast Greenway. Is that part of Rails to Trails Conservancy? Do you know?
The East Coast Greenway is its own entity. We fully support and love what they're doing. It's Maine all the way down to Florida, and similar idea. And the two will meet up in Washington, D.C. So if you wanted to kind of do a sideways T around the country, you could do the East Coast Greenway and then the Great American Rail Trail. But separate group, but we fully support their mission as well.
Very good. And quickly here, our Canadian friends, Carcarot in Vancouver, I guess, they've converted a couple of intercity rail lines to Greenway. So that's what you do is just in the U.S., but it is a worldwide concept. You were in Europe. You've seen what's going on over there. That brings a question to my mind. So do you have, does your organization have any interaction with worldwide organizations that are doing similar things?
So we are focused here in the States, but we provide technical assistance. Sometimes we have chats with folks. So for instance, when we were talking about the Great American Rail Trail, we really wanted to reach out to the Trans-Canada Trail folks. They're doing a similar, if not a little different, where they're trying to touch all 3 oceans in Canada, but some of their trails are water trails and some of it's on street. And we're trying to do it fully separated. But I went up and presented at the Bike Summit of Canada to talk about our trail, to learn more about them. So we love to hear stories. We don't have fully, unfortunately, the capacity to do a lot of international work, but keep telling us about that. That's really great to hear, Vancouver.
Absolutely. And an amazing project, Smart Bikes TV. These guys actually, I know, I met them at Spezi. This is a German family actually that does Smart Bikes. So yeah, it's going on all over the world, and we are an international YouTube channel. So we'll get people from all over the place. Let's see here. Oh, okay. That's just got a nice comment from Andrew Deerhammer.
It's actually that Orville section. Some of it's being constructed as we speak, so that's a really appropriate.
Very nice. All right, I think that's all the questions for now. Let's go ahead back to the slideshow, and you can. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Kevin.
No, that's all good. I think I was actually at a pretty good spot there. Tell me what that next slide is.
Yeah, let's go ahead and see what.
Some of our fun graphics. So this, I just wanted to say, you can, again, our website, railstotrails.org/Great American Rail Trail, or you can follow us on our Facebook page or Instagram under the same name. We're going to start to put more pictures and more stories celebrating trail openings. So follow us up there.
All right, let's go to the next slide. So now these slides, you can comment if you want. These are just for you folks out there. Kevin supplied us with a few of the prominent rail trails that are out there and people using them, just to give you an idea of how they're used. And so let's just go on through these. And Kevin, you can say a few things if you wish. Let's look at our chat as well.
What I will say is that we want to have a rail trail experience, but the whole trail won't be rail trails. So for instance, the C&O Canal is not a rail trail, but it's flat, it's relatively wide, it gives you the same experience. So we won't be doing entirely rail trail, but we wanted to call it the Great American Rail Trail so you knew what it felt like. I just went on a nice bike ride on that myself yesterday. It was great. Wanted to show you this picture because the Cowboy Trail, which is across Nebraska, is just such a great symbol of what we're trying to do. It is super long. It's got great bridges like this. It has been affected by some of the flooding recently, so it needs some help, but it's really kind of emblematic of what we're trying to create visually and the experience. This is a cool bridge crossing the Missouri River between Iowa and Nebraska. Just love to show how states can work together to do this, because these trails are going to all have to align at the state borders. So this is an important one to show.
And I might interrupt briefly here. Speaking of Iowa, if you stick around a little bit after your segment, Kevin, we're going to have Jon Hodkin on InnerTuba, who we covered just a couple of weeks ago doing RAGBRAI across Iowa, and then he continued to ride his trike and trailer playing the tuba all around Iowa. And I know he used a number of rail trails. He'll maybe quickly ask him when he comes on as well. So that was interesting to see. And I know there's a big section going through Iowa of the Great American Rail Trail I saw. So, all right, let's continue.
Yeah, you wanted to make sure we highlighted some of these great.
Yeah, I made Kevin put these next two ones in because they're in Ohio, so I had to make sure that we saw the Camp Chase Trail, and we earlier had a comment about the Little Miami Trail. There's just wonderful trails system that we have, as you know, in Ohio.
Yeah, we have an office in Yellow Springs, Ohio, outside of Dayton, so we love the Ohio trail system.
Yep, and there's another Iowa trail. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's kind of go through these.
The Trail of the Coeur d'Alenes is an interesting one because it was heavily tribal influenced out there in Idaho. It was an old rail line that was contaminated environmentally, so they had paved it over in a way that kind of kept the contaminants in there, but it's also a way that the tribe is interacting with it. It's been a boon for the communities along there. So it's one of the, as you can tell, it's also beautiful. So
I've heard amazing things about that trail.
Yeah.
I stuck this one in. You don't even know about this one. So a number of years ago, my wife and I rode our recumbent tandem along the Katy Trail. We didn't do the whole thing, but we went for about a week. And I just, I couldn't think of a more emblematic shot of rail trails than what we found here, where you can actually see the rail coming out of the trail. I happen to love that shot.
Pretty wild. So your viewers know the route does not go through Missouri, so we're not using the Katy Trail, unfortunately, but it is a super awesome trail.
It is, yeah. If you have a chance to ride on one of the longest ones, maybe the longest one in the country. So, okay, good.
So I guess the trails we're really highlighting here are what we called our gateway trails, which back in January, when we were really like teasing that this was happening, we wanted to announce one trail from each state that was typical of what the experience would be like. So the trails you're seeing right now are all our gateway trails through the different states. Cardinal Greenway is one of the most recent Rail Trail Hall of Fame winners. Of course, this year now, the Tanglefoot Trail in Mississippi. So congrats to you, Trey, and other folks in Mississippi.
Yep, Trey's already touted the wonders of that trail. Alvi Henriksen asked, are they all paved? Well, which I know the answer to that is no. But the plan is to do as much paved as possible, Kevin. Is that in general right?
I wouldn't say that way. I think
okay.
It's going to be a local. So some places want a paved trail, some don't. And we're okay with that as long as the surface is well maintained. It's relatively flat. And you can see here the Headwaters Trail is a great paved trail in Montana. But you saw the C&O Canal. That's likely never going to be paved. And really, to keep the experience, it probably shouldn't be paved. But it is.
Right, because it's a canal path, and that's the way it was originally designed. So, okay.
If you could actually go back, I just wanted to address that Montana one. I love this town. This is outside of Three Forks, Montana. On May 8th, we did a big route reveal. So you might have seen it on our social media, on our Facebook page. And I got the pleasure of being in Three Forks, Montana to talk about the trail. We went live from there. It was great. And yes, this is the shot of the hand cycles of recumbents. I made sure that we gave you guys a good shot of folks on recumbents. But yeah, this is a really great, it's a small town, maybe 2,500 people. And they showed up for our event in a way that we were surprised by what we shouldn't have been, really, because they're so excited. The rail line used to come through town. It doesn't anymore. And they really see the opportunity of trail tourism. So that's really, rural economic development is a big part of what this project.
That's part of what you sell, isn't it? I mean, we see that here too. Because I think people who don't have experience with rail trails, I mean, there's some apprehension and maybe some misinformation and thinking maybe it's not the right thing for their communities if they don't know. But if they see what happens to communities that embrace them, I think they find that they're amazing opportunity pathways for each town.
Yeah, that's a really great way to put that, Gary. Embracing what the opportunities. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go along.
Yeah, so let's just keep going through some of these photos here. I had a few other notes. I'm just trying to think of what else I wanted to tell you. This is such an exciting project. Let me tell you more about what we're doing next. I think that.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead with the slides. I think as Kevin talks, it's fine.
Yeah. So our big efforts now, we've launched a route. That's only 52% complete. So there's still roughly 1,700 miles to build, and we have a long way to go. So we are working closely with all our partners to keep up to date of projects that are being completed so we could celebrate that. Pausing on this photo, this was our May 8th launch in DC. In the middle, you see Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton and a representative from the Secretary of the Interior's Department, right? I forget his name, so I'm not going to say it here. Sorry. Yeah, we were just really excited that they wanted to. The route's the eastern terminus is at the steps of the Capitol building, so we were excited by that. So our big thing is helping build trails. So we're doing something we're calling the Catalyst initiatives. So that is roughly one project or initiative in each state that will help either get trail completed. So we provide our technical assistance for trails. It's helping unlock funding from a federal or state or local level. It's helping provide communications assistance, policy assistance. So you can find more about those on our website. We're diving in deep in projects all across the country on that. All
right. That sounds great. Let's go back to the slides. I think there's just one or two more.
Yeah, this was just that event in Three Forks. Super excited. That's an old Milwaukee Road caboose. That was an electrified rail line that went all the way roughly from Chicago out towards the Pacific Ocean, so that we got to do an event there. It's really cool. They're developing the old depot there. It's exciting. All
right, and I think if I'm not mistaken, I put that caboose picture last to remind me that was the end of the slides. Is that Trey saying yes? So I can always use little memory helps like that. So, all right, Kevin, I don't know how to quite wrap it up here other than to ask you, I think we covered a lot of ground and it was so much fun talking to you. Do you have any anything that we maybe haven't discussed you want to say or some final thoughts?
I'm just excited that we're finally gonna make a trail across the country happen that is walkable, bikeable, safe, exciting, engages with communities. So right now we have a few segments that are over 100 miles that are fully connected and completed. So you can go on our blog. You can find that on railstotrails.org. And we talk about each of those, kind of describing that experience. So please go out. If you're on segments of the Great American Rail Trail, we also want to highlight that they are, again, their own individual trails. So help support each of the trails along the way. Yeah, just stay on the trails and tell everyone about it.
That sounds good. I think we will do that for sure. And this is what this was all about, I think. So, Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge about rail trails and the Conservancy with us. We hope that you will continue to view recumbent riders in favorable ways and keep us in mind when decisions are made. And I think we'll probably do our part in supporting and promoting rail trails across the country and maybe around the world, actually, even though not directly involved with you. So we will post all of the links that you mentioned in the description below the video, of course. If folks want to get a hold of you, is that okay? And how would they do that?
Yeah, sure. Go for it. My email is kevinb@railstotrails.org. You can also email our Great American Rail Trail account, grtamerican@railstotrails.org. That's the best way to get in touch with us. And then, as I said, our website has technical resources and lots of stuff in our library. So if you want to do start there and come chat with me.
I think you're going to hear from a few people.
I think so too.
Kevin, thank you so much again. And you're welcome to come back on anytime. Maybe we'll catch up with you in a future segment and see what's going on with that Great American Rail Trail. But in the meantime, thanks again. And you have a good one. Appreciate it.
All right. You too. Thank you.
Bye-bye. And stick with us if you like. You're welcome to stick on the show and watch what's going on. So, all right, guys, let's move along. We talked a little bit about well, we have in the past already have had Jon Hodkin on the show, featured, and as many of you may know, Trey and I and my wife were out covering Jon early in his tour of Iowa on the RAGBRAI, and right before RAGBRAI and during the RAGBRAI ride across Iowa. And today we're going to catch up and see what Jon has done since RAGBRAI. I believe we find him in Rochester, Minnesota, with his host. Jon, how's it going?
It's going extremely well, thank you, Gary. How are you?
It's great to see you. We're doing great here. Tell us, first of all, I guess, who you have with you there.
Well, I've got Barbara Else with me. And say hi, Barbara.
Hey, everybody. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and Barbara has been facilitating what is yet to come in the shows here in Rochester, Minnesota. Barbara's a fellow musician, and she's a member of the American Music Therapy Association as a music therapist, and she's been very instrumental in getting things off the ground here for some shows that I've got coming up next week. And she's a very nice house, so I'm feeling very comfortable.
Yeah, that's great. I know you weren't always so comfortable during your time in Iowa, but a lot has gone on, Jon, and we were so excited to follow you. We posted a bit of your travels, but I want you, if you can now, to take a few minutes. Let's catch up. Let our audience catch up with you if you can. We've got some slides, and I can just start here at the very beginning. This is the part where, as obviously, where we were covering you. We made the video InnerTuba and the Bents of RAGBRAI, which you guys can, I'll put the link to that, but we made that video, popped that out a couple weeks ago, and I'm pretty excited about it. It was really fun.
And what a great video it is, Gary. Gary and Trey and Marilyn came and filmed all of that, and they've just put a wonderful editing to it as well. So it really comes to life with all of the vision and the music. Thank you so much.
Okay, so, and Jon, you started out, we met up with you at the expo, which precedes RAGBRAI, and it was right there across the river from Omaha, Nebraska. and what was the name of that town? Sioux Falls?
No, Council Bluffs.
Council Bluffs, that's right. Sorry. So anyways, let me let you take the slides over at this point here. This was that first morning, I think. Go ahead.
No, that's right. That was at around about 4:30 in the morning. And in order for me to keep up with the distances each day, I was on the road from 4:30 in the morning. I was one of the first out, and I was one of the last in every night because I was still pedaling quite often just before midnight as well. Yeah. So it's a good job I had a comfortable ergo seat on my ice trikes, I think.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the entire team of the Laidback Bike Report at an early stop in the whole thing. That was on the first day, which was pouring down with rain, and we took time out to just take that celebratory photograph of people that I'd known, you, Gary, in particular, who I'd known for years, and I'd never had the chance to meet really until a day or two before then. So it was wonderful. Yeah.
That's nice. All right.
Ah, yes, and that's with Kyle, isn't it? From Ride Ataxia, who I featured with him on a webcast in April, I think it was, wasn't it, Gary?
That's right. Coincidentally, it was quite an interesting thing. Coincidentally, we were following Jon coming down the hill, and then suddenly we had Kyle saying hello, which we didn't even expect to see him. And he came in at the same time Jon did. So we did a little impromptu interview with both of them. It was great seeing Kyle from Ride Ataxia there as well. Go ahead.
And it was at that particular point you also got some really good drone footage as well. You know, I can't overstate rather how impressed I am with that video that you did.
Yes, I didn't get the drone footage. That was Trey.
Yeah, well,
so, he did an amazing job with that. Yeah, you'll see that in the video, guys.
Yeah. Next slide, please. And that's the man with the green hat himself, Gary Solomon, and he is interviewing me there in the pouring rain again. I think I was explaining to you at that point that for the first time, that was on day one, for the first time I'd actually started to overtake some people because everybody overtook me. And that's a lot of people overtaking me because that whole RAGBRAI event, for people who don't know it, the Register's annual Great Bicycle Ride Across Iowa, is thousands and thousands and thousands of cyclists, including a significant minority, but nonetheless a large number of recumbents that you managed to capture in the video as well.
Right. I've been saying that I don't have any hard evidence of this, but I've been saying it's actually the largest recumbent event in the world because there are somewhere 12 to 15,000 bicycles, and even a very small percentage of that, there were hundreds and hundreds of recumbents that we saw. It could very well be.
I think you're probably right, Gary. Yeah. Okay, next slide, please. I don't know what's coming up. We're buffering a little bit here.
Okay, so this is a picture of Jon playing his tuba with loudmouth brass. I think we want to start talking a little bit about your music, Jon, because it was a great deal about riding your trike and pulling your trailer, but this whole trip is a great deal about your music.
Absolutely, and this is Loudmouth Brass, and they're actually from Rochester, Minnesota, and you can't see Becca in that photograph there. Is there another one of Loudmouth Brass?
Yeah, you can see her tuba and her knee.
Yes, sousaphone. And she also rode RAGBRAI. She didn't carry her tuba with her. Maybe next time.
We might have one in Chariton of her. I'm not sure if she's in that shot or not. Yeah. Let's go ahead to the next one.
Yeah. No, that's a nice shot, though, isn't it?
That's another shot of Jon coming into one of the smaller towns there.
And that shows the trike and the trailer. And the trailer was made by Connecticut Yankee Peddler, and the trike was supplied. The Ice Trikes HD, Adventure HD, was supplied by Connecticut Yankee Peddler, which is a very big deal in terms of my support to have got me for my first overseas tour here, but also in terms of it being a really, really good shop in Iowa to go to try out lots and lots of different kinds of trikes. Not quite on the same scale as PDX, but it's knocking at the door,
Absolutely. And just as an aside, we are while we were out there traveling, we were in Wisconsin, did a LBS video shoot at the Hostel Shop. And while we were in Chariton, which is where this is, and you have obscured her again, I think, Jon, but you can do a little bit there. Anyways, yeah, you can see the shop. It looks like a marquee for a theater. That's where Connecticut Yankee Peddler is. And we also did an LBR at your LBS shoot with Dave Hendricks there. Those two videos will be coming out. I'm going to talk about that a little later, but we got lots of video there as well. Great shots. Yes.
Yeah. Next shot. Oh, and that was me completing. Sadly, Gary and his crew had to leave just after Chariton, which was about halfway through, just a little bit before. But that was me dipping the wheels into the Mississippi River right at the end in a town right in southeast Iowa called Keokuk, which is a place that I became very fond of.
So that was, John, 475 miles, maybe more, right? 500 miles that you did for RAGBRAI, and then your tour was not over. And I think that we're going to talk about that now. Go ahead, John. Do you want to finish up something with RAGBRAI, though?
The published mileage was 427, but people who rode it with GPS and Strava and one thing and another say that it was more than that. And I'm quite happy to believe that it was more than 427 miles, especially at the end of some of the days. But that was a monumentally proud moment, I have to say, that holding the tuba up above my head, having completed RAGBRAI, and before setting upon the more moderately paced and more musically punctuated part of the journey as well. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's a good punctuation for RAGBRAI. Let's move along to the next slide and talk about gravel roads on this shirt. What's this about?
Yeah, well, that's a shirt which shows the 72,292 miles of gravel road which exists right across Iowa, and that's, as many of you will recognize, is the shape of the outline of Iowa State. And I found myself on many of those roads following Google Maps. And they're very pleasant to ride on, apart from the fact that they're extremely hard work and the surface is very, very variable. So for recumbent trike riding, pulling a great big tuba trailer, probably not so great. But I think they'd be wonderful for something with fatter tires. I mean, a full fat trike on there with panniers loaded, I think it would work. And that's, existing roads which are never going to be anything other than gravel. But they take you right into the heart of a tranquil, rural Iowan idyll. I'm only talking about Iowan ones because I don't know about them, what they're like anywhere else. So next slide, please. Ah, yes, and that was true. They were. They've got all sorts of things in their garden, and that was on one of the bike trails running along the Illinois side of the Mississippi River, coming north from the Quad Cities.
So you just
and there's lots and lots of that. Was just a fun sign put up to be seen by people who were going to be passing on bikes and trikes regularly on that riverside trail. And that's me playing to some people now. Whereabouts is that? That is, I know, it looks outdoors, doesn't it? But it's not. That's at the Children's Museum in Bettendorf, which is one of the Quad Cities, again on the Mississippi River. Next slide. And that's a beautiful, beautiful occasion with the big River Brass Band, director of music, Nick Probst, who's taken some of those rather elegant photographs as well. And that was a chance for us to do an open rehearsal of some music that's been written for me, one piece by a fantastic trombone player from Great Britain called John Hodkin, and the other by
John, I'm expecting it's not an everyday occurrence to be in the practice room there with the orchestra and the trike in there as well.
Yeah. So I was able to tell them a bit of the story of the background of the music. Some of the music, one of the pieces we played was Tuba Odyssey by Fran Arotta, and it's a programmatic musical representation of life on the road with the tuba on a trike. So that was quite fun, and they were massively hospitable people, and I've got extremely fond memories of that evening. It was wonderful, and that was on a $28 million art center stage, and the audience there is the Blue Devils from Davenport Central High School marching band. And they took time out from being in the extreme heat. They were doing a band camp, as you call it. These are all new words to me, but a band camp, marching band thing. And they were outdoors doing their routines, and then they came in to this fantastic new schools art centre for me to give a presentation there. And again, Nick Probst took that rather good photograph. Next, please. And that was another example of this was put together by music therapists who work for West Music, which is a music retailer that operates right throughout Iowa and a little bit into Illinois as well. And that was a center dedicated to the support and care of people with Down syndrome, and that was a late afternoon performance in their art space there, and that was great fun. It was a wonderful occasion. That was in the Quad Cities as well. And next, please. And that's me in the telly studio. I went on the telly twice in the Quad Cities, and there may be some opportunities to get on that. We're looking at possibilities to get on the telly here in Rochester as well. So 2 television appearances in the Quad Cities, and that was quite interesting. I've never done studio work before, and that's me with Barbara, who's sitting next to me now, who will do a little tell you a little bit about what we plan in the future. But that's again at West Music, that's in Iowa City, with the vice president of that company, Ryan West, grandson of the founders of the company, and we're having some preliminary chats about how it might be possible, how we might be able to make it possible for InnerTuba to come back to this part of the world again and do a more extensive and a more in-depth tour. But those are discussions that are ongoing, and we'll see. We may be able to come back with more news about that at some point. Yeah. Now these lovely old school buses, this is back to RAGBRAI, these lovely old school buses are converted into team buses, which provide vehicle support for people. If I were to have the opportunity to do RAGBRAI again, I would definitely hook up with this particular team bus. They invited me along, and I wouldn't carry all of my stuff every day because it's too much like hard work. And I'd scale down the amount of stuff that I'm taking, and I would scale up the number of times that I would do a street performance and gear a musical performance directed specifically at RAGBRAI. But again, that will depend if I get a chance to come back here or not. Those school buses, they're just an art form, all of them are of their own, and there must be at least 50 of them.
There were so many that we saw, John.
They're incredible, aren't they? Yeah, they're absolutely good. They're just, you could just do a documentary about the buses themselves, let alone RAGBRAI. It's extraordinary.
Right. And I think I put this last just to kind of get, I thought it was a great shot of you and the trike and the trailer and kind of that look on your face like you've had a great accomplishment. Is that, Trey, is that the last one for John? I think it is. Yep. So, John, let's go back to you if we can, and Barbara, and let's bring us up to date. So you, after RAGBRAI, you had all this this connection with a number of places that you stopped and musical connections. And so bring us right up to date at Rochester, and tell us how you plan to finish when you're heading back to Scotland, and what the plans are for the future that you can talk about.
Well, I'm going to hand over to my boss here now. She's the officer in charge now.
I'm going to hold him hostage for the whole week, but it's not surprising to me that he's a trike riding tuba player. As a troubadour running across Iowa, the rhythm and breathing groove you get into is not unlike what happens when you're a brass player. I'm a woodwind player, but I'm all for tuba power for sure. What we see happening here is that what's more important to me is that John's a bridge builder with his recumbent trike and his tuba playing, because he's bringing a message about how music can benefit the youth of our country and beyond. So I'm really excited that he's going to be playing a concert with our Rochester Community Band on Thursday evening here in Rochester. And he'll be also doing some sidebar gigs with the youth in our city at the Boys and Girls Club of Rochester, as well as the Children's Museum, hooking up with some of our music therapists in town. He'll be departing next Friday or Saturday or something like that.
Yeah.
He'll be hanging with us for the week, but we're all excited to have him. I'm really thrilled to have a recumbent bike in my garage right now.
Yeah. Barbara, thank you so much for filling that. And, a couple of things occur to me. First of all, you represent so many of the people that have helped John on this journey, that have volunteered their houses and their time. John could talk more about it, and he has to me many times. So thank you for on behalf of all those people that have helped him. And secondly, the musical part of what John does, we don't talk enough about. He doesn't talk about it enough, because he does more than just play the tuba. He does it for people and makes a difference with those people. He does wonderful work, and he won't talk about that himself, but we're big fans of InnerTuba here at the Laidback Bike Report, and have been for some time. I hope more of our audience will continue to follow John and on his travels. We do hope he gets a chance to come back. John, final words about that?
Yeah, well, just for the record, I cut short the actual major part of the touring in Iowa City because we had the chance to visit with Ryan at West Music, and so I haven't ridden all the way up to Rochester, but I think I earned a stripe as a cyclist on the RAGBRAI thing. You know, I think
so. Yeah,
that was all fine. But yeah, so now lots and lots of time looking at how we might be able to progress the idea of me coming back here. I do love it here. It's heartfelt. This part of America is not one that I was familiar with, and I've just it's got under my skin a little bit. So it would be great to come back here. And the ultimate aim at the end of all of this is that I want to cycle coast to coast across Canada, but that can wait whilst we have lots of exciting experiences in the build up to that.
Cat Karat, which, as I recall from an earlier comment, is in Canada, John, by the way. I think represents what happens here in the States too. Educational budget cuts have often cut music programs, apparently in Canada as well as here in the US. So what's your experience been with that, John?
It's exactly the same in the United Kingdom. In fact, that there's quite a lot of protests going on now with groups of youth orchestras and so on going out onto the streets. There was quite a big campaign in Glasgow recently where the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama Orchestra went and performed and said, you know, unless we have grassroots music education in schools, we're not going to have the BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra, for example, and we have to have one to have the other. And it's not seen as a priority, and it's directly affected InnerTuba because I used to be able to get budgeted professional engagements in primary schools, and that market is kind of dwindled significantly in the last 5 years or so. Austerity cuts, we call it. That's what it is. So I think it's people need to recognise that if you have good musicians and good artists, you have altogether more competent and able people in whatever they might choose to go into in future. So we have to keep music education alive.
Very good sentiment, Dan. If you're going to keep it alive and represent it, why not do it on a recumbent trike and with a tuba? That's what John does, folks. And John, we appreciate so much all that you do, and we had so much fun following you. We're going to continue to do that. We hope for the best as far as you coming on back to America, be it Canada or the U.S. We'll keep following you and let everybody know what's going on with InnerTuba. So, John, thank you so much, and Barbara, thank you as well.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay, see you guys. All right, folks, let's move along now. Another good friend of the show has been on a couple of times, and he's going to be talking to us from London. It's John Williams. John, are you there?
Hey, hi, Gary. Here as always, and happy to be on.
Thank you for waiting so much, John. John, I hope you enjoyed what we've been doing so far, because that was a little while.
It's been great. I loved InnerTuba. Just absolutely brilliant what he's doing.
Right.
And Rails to Trails, fantastic. Beautiful scenery and just beautiful trails. Yeah, really good.
Yeah, two guys named John from England. So it's a record for the Laidback Bike Report. We're happy to have number two, and you're not number two in comparison. I'm just telling you that right now. All right, well, John, the reason that you're on today is because there was a very special event that went on in July, an event that I attended with Lars last year in England. It's the World HPV Championships. We had a great time then. I was sorry that I couldn't make this year's, but it was in Nandex, France, and luckily this is 2 years in a row for you, and you were able to go, and I believe rode from London actually to the World Championships and participated. So we've got a few slides, John, and why don't we jump into those if we can? You can tell us about your experience starting from I guess London, and then you went here. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just got the QV, I think, a week and a half before the trip. So bought my first new velomobile and decided to plan the ride with a good friend of mine, Ian Squires. And Ian Squires owns a DF velomobile from Intercity Bikes, and we decided we'd ride together down to the World Championships in France. So I started off from London and went over the South Downs, which is one of the hilliest parts of the UK, and a really tough ride through there. and ended up at Ian's brother-in-law, and he plied us with alcohol and whiskey from all corners of the globe. So
wait, Trey, put the whiskey back up there. There we go. We don't want to.
Yeah, the guy's a collector of whiskies, and a few of the countries I didn't even know that they made whiskey. But yeah, it got pretty messy, and we did have a long ride to do the next day. So by the time the whiskey come out, I look like in the photo my head's about to fall off. So I've had enough by then.
So you're not necessarily recommending this as fuel for riding a velomobile across the country?
Definitely not.
All right, let's go ahead, Trey, if you would.
Yeah, and then this is, I think, as we're approaching the ferry to New Haven, if I'm correct. And yeah, the Quattrovello was going pretty well there, very comfortable. Rock solid on the descents as well. I think I was braking a bit, and then I realized like the bike wasn't going anywhere, so I let her roll a bit. And it was my bike basically with a few track pump and a few tools in the back of the jacket, weighs 39 kilograms with a mountain drive, and I think Ian's is about 24. So and I loaded up with a lot of stuff as well, and Ian filled the DF up. And so yeah, we were both loaded down, but I had to put in a bit more work than Ian. And the problem was we didn't really realize just a few days before the trip, a few of the weather predictions were coming up on the Velomobile Club of Great Britain, which is my Facebook page I started up, and that there was a heat wave in France, and it was 36 to 40 Celsius most days. So we knew it was going to be a really tough ride, and this is out on the plains where we were just amongst wheat fields, and it was flat and absolutely boiling, and we both suffered from hot foot, and it was tough. It was really tough, but yeah, we got through there. I mean, the breeze coming towards us was so hot that it was burning the back of your eyeballs. It was.
Let's go to the next slide, Trey.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can tell Trey if you want. You can have him move along if you want.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Here, I think we're about 70 miles in. We arrived in Dieppe, and we've ridden about 70 miles here, and this was quite a shock. The heat was something else, as you can see in that photo, and yeah, I'm supping on some water there as I'm just going off to have a leak. Yeah, we can move on to the next one. Yes, this was luckily. I just want to say a little bit about the race cap, because I decided to go for the race cap on the QV, or you can have it open, as in Ian Squire's bike at the front there.
And yours is the QV behind him. You can see
yes.
the cap that matches the Velomobile.
Yeah, and it just sits over the top of your head, a carbon fiber roof that comes over with a visor on the front. And a few people said that it was going to be really hot on the trip, and it actually worked brilliantly as a parasol. So I stayed. I didn't get as fried as Ian did. Ian had to have the full-on scarf and everything on. And this is at the races, actually, in 3-hour race. Hurtling up the hill towards the start-finish line there, I think. And yeah, a lot of fun, and a beautiful 12-kilometer course with some pretty scary descents.
Hang on a second, if you could, John. Let me interject here if I can, so everyone understands. Yeah. So you rode your Velomobiles from London to Nandex, with ferry, of course. And and John, I neglected to mention at the very beginning, I think most people know this, of course, John owns a YouTube channel called velo-ads, and he makes remarkable videos about mostly velomobiles, but recumbents in general sometimes as well. It attends various events and evaluates the bikes and the velomobiles, does a great job of it. And I just found out very recently that the wonderful videos that he makes, he does shoot great videos, but his wife Maggie actually edits those videos, and so she deserves a lot of the credit as well. They do a wonderful job. It's a great team effort, I would say. So now John is at the World Championships in Nandex, so that people kind of get an idea here. Go ahead, John. Let's see what we got.
Yeah, so we're hurtling up the hill here, and it was a pretty epic downhill to come, and then a dip, and then you start going up for, I'd say, 3 kilometers to the top again, and then you have a 12-kilometer loop all the way around, and they managed to get the local council to close all the roads, so you basically have 12 kilometers of pristine countryside and rolling hills, and huge descents to hurtle along without much worry about vehicular traffic. So it was great. And I think the record coming down that hill was Lars Swinnen from Belgium in his DF. He hit 100 kilometers an hour down there, which is pretty brave.
62 miles an hour for those of us talking.
Yes, this is the sprints, the 200-meter sprints. I think that was on what did we do Friday? So that was on the Saturday. Friday there was a hill climb competition in a village about 5 miles from where we were staying in Nandex, and you went in pairs. So you'd do the sprint against somebody else all the way down, and you've got the ice team just behind the guy in the white top there.
A couple of very fast dudes there, including Matt, the world champion.
Yes, and Chris and his son Tim from Ice Trikes on the tandem.
Right, and we have a better shot, I think, coming up next. Go ahead and pop that next slide up.
Here we are. Yeah, Chris looking very relaxed before all hell breaks loose.
Right, not just a recumbent trike tandem, but a back-to-back one, right?
Yeah, and they went very well. They were flying along. And Tim's a really good stoker there in the rear.
Yeah, there are a couple of good riders too. Okay, let's go on.
Yeah, and they've got. I think that's Giovanni's. I think that's Giovanni's wife from Italy, and he owns the
Giovanni Iapani from Italy. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And they did really well, and it was nice seeing him as always. You know, I've caught up with him now. 2 World Championships. I'd like to say the organisation was phenomenal, and the French guys did a cracking job on the whole event. Yeah, it was absolutely brilliant. I loved it, and I love France anyway. You know, the food, the cycling, the scenery, everything just melts together and makes it a beautiful place to be on a bike.
Let's go ahead, Trey. Next one, please.
Yeah. Next one. Yeah, there's one of the Birkenstock guys. I think 5 of them rode together from Switzerland, and it sounds like it was an amazing trip, actually. Yeah, and their bikes are just beautiful works of art. There's a couple more. There's Charles Henry, the owner of the company, on the orange Birkenstock at the back.
And last year's world champion, overall world champion, right?
Yes, on the fully faired streamliner, but he decided that it would be too rapid for the village roads, and so he rode one of his recumbents.
Partially fair. So they have different categories for those of you that maybe are unfamiliar. They have unfaired and faired and partially faired, 2-wheeled and 3-wheeled categories, a number of different categories. And this is the partially faired one, I believe.
Yeah. You can check out Charles's range of bikes on Birkenstock Bikes, I think the website is.
Very cool stuff. Yeah.
The next one. Yes. So basically, when the Velomobiles were doing their time sprints, you'd hurtle down with somebody else next to you in their Velomobile. And when you get to the end, when you finish your run, this was the bottleneck. So you'd come hurtling along, and then you'd look up and you'd just see a massive parked Velomobile. So you'd have to slam on the anchors and hope that you didn't plow into all the bikes there, because there's quite an expensive bunch of machines. And but it made a great photo. Then you turn around and all roll back down to the start.
Next one.
And here we go. This is on the ride down to the start of the sprints, I think it was. And there's a few bikes parked up on the way, and I took a photo. It was lovely. Just in the whole town and on the outskirts for miles, you'd see Velomobiles and recumbents whizzing backwards and forwards off to the supermarket. It was just really nice to see. And this is the hill climb in a place called, I think it was Jarouche or something. I can't remember the name of the little village now. Really quaint little place, a lovely little bar at the start to all the races. So I popped in there to get lots of fizzy drinks, because it was absolutely boiling, about 40 Celsius on that day. And it was quite difficult to film, and I had a lot of problems with my camera, but I think
let's stop there for a second. It's important, I think, so Jon, I told you guys about velo-ads, his YouTube channel, and the amazing videos. So Jon really put together a great video of the World Championships. I've only seen the first part. He's got yet to post part 2, I guess, but under very difficult circumstances. And I told Jon when we were chatting about before he came on the show, how, you know, Lars and I would certainly agree how difficult it is to go and just to cover an event like this, to do that and to ride there and to ride in it, to compete actually in the race is also like another level of difficulty. And then, John, what happened on the way? What happened on the way to the event?
Yeah, my lovely camera just decided, you know what, I don't want to be on this holiday. I'm just going to pack up, stop working, and that was that. So I filmed, I think, 2/3 of the trip on the way in, and then the camera stopped working. So I was slightly stuck when I got to the World Championships. I thought, how am I going to film anything? You know, so I had to sort of pull out my mobile phone and try and interview a few people with the phone, and they were looking at me like I was totally insane or I had heat stroke or something. Wondering why I was trying to film them with the phone. I had to explain that the cameras died. But luckily, Jack Watson from the UK, who was over racing his Streamliner, let me use his camera for a bit. I've still got to send your memory card back, Jack, so I'll ask you for your address and I'll post it to you. Recorded delivery, and thanks again. And oh God, I can't remember the other guy's name now. It's terrible. But he knows who he is. He let me use his camera for a day and a half, which was fantastic. So that helped a bit. But then I had all this dodgy footage from the phone, and it took. Thank goodness for the wifey. She managed to make a lovely cake out of some rotten eggs.
That's right, and it is. It's a beautiful video, and especially when you know the circumstances. So, all right, let's get back to the. Let's get back to the slides if we could. Sorry, Lars, go ahead.
Yes,
this is an unusual pick. I wanted you to talk a little bit about what this was.
Yeah, this was a French guy, Xavier Clohard or something. And I saw this bike and I wanted to ask him about it, but he couldn't speak English. And so I just took a photo of the damper setup at the back there. It reminds me of the QV, the Panhard rod and whatnot. So and that was how I sort of deciphered that he'd made the bike himself. And
a tilting trike, right, John?
Tilting trike, yes, a work of art. Yeah, lovely.
Beautiful. All right, let's go on to the next one.
And this really caught my eye. It was at the agricultural college where the accommodation was for the World Championships, and really well made recumbent. And I thought, I'm not familiar with this brand. I haven't seen it before. So I asked the guy, and he said, "Oh no, you can't buy this. I made it myself." I couldn't believe it. Beautiful machine. So I sort of interviewed him with my mobile phone, and we went over the bike, and he told me a few bits about it, which you can see on the velo-ads YouTube channel if you're interested and want to check it out. Yeah. This is a really lovely chap, Larry Osland from the USA. He came all the way over for the World Championships. And this is the bike park at the accommodation where we left our bikes overnight indoors, all safe and sound. And that was
those viewers of our show will know Larry, of course, the American rider of cruise bikes. And Larry was, as I told John, was actually on the show here a couple months ago, previewing his ride in France. And he got a lot of help from the British riders there as well in terms of transportation and stuff. And we're going to see, I guess we'll get a little shot of Larry here a little bit further on, aren't we?
Okay. Next one. Yes, this was a great chap. I think he was French, middle-aged guy, and this wow had like so many things done to it. He really made it his own machine, and he was so much fun in the 3-hour race. We were sort of overtaking each other, same sort of speed potential really, and he'd overtake me on the downhills. And then I'd overtake him on the ups and on the flat. So, and every time I went past or he overtook me, we'd shout at each other. So this went on for like an hour and 45 minutes or something. So great fun, yeah. Yes, this is part of the old agricultural college, which has been there hundreds of years. And we wanted to have a look inside. We had our breakfast and we went for a walk around the grounds with Larry Osland and a couple of others. And then I decided to ask a lady who couldn't speak much English if we could go inside to check out the architecture. And so she called the guy, and he came down, and she explained to him in French what we wanted, and then he took us up these winding stairs and all the way to the top. And we thought, where is this guy taking us? We walked around behind him for a few minutes, and then he took us to his dormitory and said, there you go, there's some bunk beds here, one for Larry, one for you, one for him, one for her. And we were like, no, we're not staying. We just want to have a look around. And he looked, like
Larry thought you were getting them and getting you guys in trouble, didn't he?
Yeah, Larry was like, oh, we're in trouble here. He's taking us off somewhere. We're never going to see the light of day again, Yeah, it was really funny. And
that's what it looks like on the outside, though. Huh?
Yeah, and that's the building we wanted to go in and have a look. It was absolutely stunning. And the where we had our meals 3 times a day was on the left, just in front of that, just out of shot. So a beautiful venue, absolutely stunning. And I'd love to go back. Yeah.
Okay, next. All right,
yes,
so,
and then
I put this together, and I'll let you talk about it, John. So I know folks are going to be kind of interested in, now we've talked about the World Championships, what were the results. So I kind of combined some shots from the website about the results, the rankings. So John, talk a little bit about what you saw in terms of the winners and such.
Yeah, there's a great race with Peter in the junior men, and he was racing along with Daniel Fenn of DF Alpha 7 fame, Evo K. He's a designer, German designer, and he made, you can see that he's 3rd there in the fully fared class on the right bottom corner. And so they were in different classes, but Peter is Yempty's son, and Yempty owns City Bikes, who make the DF Velo, which is quite a sporty, fast Velo, really popular. So they had this cracking race, and it was toss up between the young guy on the left, Peter, or Daniel winning the 3 hour. And Peter was in the lead on the last lap, and his chain came off with a few 100 meters to go. And so he slowed right down, and Daniel overtook him, which was a bit a shame, really. But yeah, amazing. Yeah, so Peter did really, really well. He's taken after his father. He's always been a phenomenal velomobile racer, and he's passed it down to his son. And
daughter, apparently.
And the daughter as well, yeah.
Anna's there for the junior women, yeah.
Yep, she was on a road bike, and she done really well as well. We had all of the kids racing at the World Championships, which I think is very admirable and quite difficult to do, because I've been trying to get my eldest son to race for years, and he's not interested. But yeah, I think Yempty's done really well keeping all the teenagers involved and doing a good job of that. Yeah. And then this photo is after the World Championships are over, and we're heading back. And we decided to leave after the 3 hour race Sunday night, get everything packed and ready, get the bikes sorted, and we'd leave, get up at 4:30 or 4, and try to get on the road by 4:45 in the morning. And this is on one of the velo vert routes, which I didn't know about actually, and Ian had a few on his Garmin. And they're really nice cycle routes in France. And with that heat, when we did hop onto one for even 10 miles on the way, and it's tree lined, and you just get a nice bit of shade, and it just keeps you alive, really. And this is the headlights of the DF, and the light on the right there is the Quattrovello has 2 headlights, so they're super bright, basically like a car. So you can light up the lanes completely and see where you're going. It's phenomenal.
Okay, next one.
Yes. And this is on our way home. We had a phone call from one of my good friends, Neil Hood. I've been riding with him today, actually. We were out in the velomobiles at Regent's Park. And Neil drove down in his motorhome, carrying his velomobile on the back there, as you can see. And he picked up Larry Osland in Paris. And they drove down with Larry, Jonathan Woolrich from the BHPC, and a good friend, Sean Ballantyne, as well. He was the son of Richard Ballantyne, the author. Bicycle book and etc. And yeah, this is it was about 40 Celsius on that day, and we've been riding, I think we've done maybe 100 miles so far, and they turned up with lots of frozen vegetables in carrier bags. So I've got one behind my neck there. Ian Squires has one on top of his head, and
I just thought that was one of those new fancy French chapeau things.
Yeah. Boil in the bag, yeah. So it's great. They plied us with coffee and ice cold yogurts and cold drinks. It was a really nice pit stop. It was so nice of them to, rang us up. Where are you? Oh, we're here sitting by a lake in the shade, just trying to keep out the sun for half an hour and have a picnic. we'll be there in 40 minutes. Don't go anywhere. So we waited, and they turned up in the van, and yeah, got the little fold-up chairs out. It was really nice.
Nice break, wasn't it? Okay, next one.
Yeah. And this is on the ferry, so we're about to disembark now and get the bikes and head off back into the UK. And so we took a photo just to say that we've pretty much completed the whole trip, and it was an epic achievement. I think about 1,400 kilometers I did in 6 days of riding. So
1,400 kilometers, and you competed in the race, and you created a video, John.
I don't know how I did it, Gary. When I think about it, when you put it like that, I'm like, I don't know how.
Yeah,
how I did
it's all a
that.
blur, I'm sure, but what you did was amazing. I think, was that the last slide, Trey? Yeah, I thought so too. So, John, really, I can't thank you enough for again spending a little time with us on that. We love seeing what you do. I watch the velo-ads channel like a hawk. When you put something up, I just love watching what you do, and I can't wait for the second one. When's Maggie going to have that part two?
She's working on it now, so hopefully it definitely will be up by tomorrow.
Okay.
So part two's coming tomorrow, and we got a lot of stuff we're doing with the Alpha 7, which is a new velomobile. It's super light. It's the one most people want to upgrade to. And I've got one sent over to London for a 3-month review. And I've been riding that most days, and it weighs about 21 kilograms, depending on spec. And it's a phenomenal machine. It's the fastest bike I've ever ridden. And so, yeah, there's a lot to come on the Alpha 7. So, yeah, check that out as well. Oh, I'd like to say one last thing really quickly. I just want to say thank you to Dennis Bodenek from Brittany in France for the handmade carbon fiber, beautiful light mount for the top of my Quattro Velo. And there you go.
Yeah, nice.
And it's got a fit in for the light as well. So that's going to go on the roof. Dennis, I haven't forgotten, and I'm going to fit it at the end of the month. I've just been a bit busy at the moment, but beautiful piece of work and made just for the QV hood. Very
nice. Well, there's a few QV owners out there, so
yeah.
Send me the link to him, or how people can get a hold of him. If
definitely, I will do. Yeah,
in case people. So, all right, John Williams, folks. Thanks again, John, and we will see you again soon. Thanks, pal.
Lovely. Thanks for having me as always, Gary. It's always great to speak to you, and I'll speak to you soon. Take care.
Okay, we'll see you. All right, guys, let's move along. We are going to talk to Denny. Denny, you'll make sure to unmute yourself, and we have got an interesting sports report.
And all of a sudden, my sports report just disappeared. I just brought it over here to the other screen, and it is gone. Give me a minute here, and I'll be back. Okay.
Oh, how about I start reading it until you catch up here? Because
okay, fine.
Senior Games Invitational is the beginning thing. We got pop up that slide. There we go. Registration is open. Denny says September 20 to 22nd at Two Rivers Park in Little Rock, right by the infamous Big Dam Bridge. As we've mentioned before, they will be including recumbents this year. Minimum age to race is 40. Most senior games, the minimum age is 50. Age groups are in 5-year increments, men's and women's divisions, and it's open to bikes, recumbent bikes, trikes, and velomobiles. So if you're interested and somewhere near this event, consider giving it a go. And Denny's thanking Jane Knight for submitting this, and Jane has been a huge advocate for the Arkansas Senior Games, and as we've had some quotes on from her before. So thanks for that, Jane. And
I'm back.
Are you ready to go on the Senior Games?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Larry, go ahead.
Yeah, so we got a report from Larry Seidemann on the Nebraska Senior Games in Kearney, Nebraska. There were 2 days of racing, August 3rd and 4th, and each day started out with an out and back flat time trial. Larry Seidemann in his Green Speed trike and Tim Cada in his Schlitter bike were winners in their categories for the time trials, though admittedly with not that much participation. Then after each time trial was a 20 and 40K road race, and in the 40K, Tim Cada with his Schlitter went to the front and led all the bikes for at least half of the race and finished first in the 60 to 64 age group, while Larry finished first as the only 50 to 59 trike. Now, in the Wyoming Senior Games, 2 days of cycling started out with a 20K road race, and it was an out and back with a nice hill about halfway out. Recumbents were put into their age groups, and there was one mass start for the men, closely followed by the women. August 8th in the 20K road race, Larry was third in the 50 to 59, and Tim Cada was second in the men's 60 to 64. Roger Reddish was sixth in the men's 70 to 74. Each afternoon, there was a one-way west to east time trial, and August 8th on the 10K time trial, Larry Seidman was the second men's 55 to 59, and Tim Cada was second men's 60 to 64. Roger Reddish was the second men's 70 to 74. August 9th, the 40K road race, Larry Seidman was third out of three men's 55 to 59. Tim Cada was second in men's 60 to 64, and Roger Reddish, fourth man in 70 to 74. The final race was a short wind-aided 5K time trial. This led to some very fast times and many racers left in a good mood, kind of like hitting that last good golf shot, right? August 5th, 5K time trial. Larry Seidman was second at 50 to 55 age group. Tim Cada was second in 60 to 64. And Roger Reddish was second men's 70 to 74. Also of note, August 10th, this is from Larry, Mike Sales of Westminster, Colorado was the only hand cyclist who finished the grueling Pikes Peak cycling Grand Fondo hill climb. His time was 3 hours, 2 minutes, an average of 4.1 miles per hour. If you've ever ridden or driven the route, that's a pretty decent time. He managed to post a faster time than 18 other riders in a rather large field. And then we're on to the Michigan HPV races, the 35th annual Michigan Human Powered Vehicle Rally. The oldest such event in North America was held at the Waterford Hills Sports Car Racing Track in the Oakland County Sportsman's Club grounds in Clarkson near Pontiac in southeast Michigan. Classes for streamlines, unstreamlined cycles, tandems, women's, youth, and tricycles. Which would be tricycles. Yeah. The rally conducted usually using the human-powered race American rules. Prize money was awarded to the top finishers of each class. This year's event included a 1-hour time trial, a hill climb, a 200 feet flying start, and road race. The classes were streamliner, streetliner, stock, trike, women, and juniors. And Gary, you better get ready to pick up again because we've got a really bad summer's
okay, I'm here for you if you need
thunderstorm. Yeah, just in case I go away, because I'm getting some power dips here. The classes were streamliner, stockliner, stock, trike, women's, and juniors. This looks like a fun event, and sadly, it's one of the last of its kind. I've been around recumbents for over 20 years now, and when I started in the late 90s, these events were all over the country. With a huge increase in interest in trikes and velomobiles, it would be nice to see some of them return. It just looked like an awful lot of fun, a great weekend event. Now, on to the Paris-Brest-Paris. So the World Cup of Randonneuring, Paris-Brest-Paris, is also known as PBP, is held every 4 years in France. While not a race, it is a timed event with a 90-hour time limit. 6,000 riders from all over the world who have qualified by riding and completing 4 qualifying events, a 200, 300, 400, and 600 kilometer solo rando ride. These rides must be done between October and June, just previous to the event. The rides also must be certified by the National Randonneuring Organization of their country. In this country, it's Randonneurs USA. This event has bicycles of all types, including recumbents and velomobiles. And speaking of velomobiles, I contacted Bill Russell of Martha's Vineyards, Massachusetts, who just happens to be riding in this year's event. Here's what he had to say about the event. This is a quote from Bill. I took delivery of a new DFXL in February, and I've got it pretty well dialed in. I managed to roll an 1858 600K in early June. This led to a fresh round of calls for me to shoot for a Charlie Miller time. A note to our viewers, Charlie Miller was the first American to ride PBP with a time of 56 hours and 40 minutes. This is back almost more than a century ago, actually. Bill further states, while I am as fast or faster than a lot of the CM riders for PBP, I remain firmly committed to the Adrian Tan Society. This is another obscure comment, and is mandated to fully enjoy the riches of the course, which is exemplified by the loving support of the people of Brittany. There is too much to savor to rush through for a time. I've even tarted up my velomobile with a large-scale Bretagne flag, that's pretty hard to pronounce, as a salute to his outpouring of communal support. Bon route, Bill. There's pictures of his velo out there, and it is well tarted up, I will say. And from Peter Stahl, we learn about Quenby Dunlop, who is riding PBP on her custom linear roadster. Quenby plans to sleep as little as possible to complete the 1,200K, 744-mile route in 90 hours. To do this, she will have to average 8.25 miles per hour, 24 hours a day for almost 4 days. And go for it, Quenby. Other bent riders we know are riding PBP are Englishman Ian Perry and his DF, and Frenchman and owner of the bent shop Velo Fasto, Philippe Deschutes, in his Ice VTX. The first recumbent to complete BBP was an Avatar 2000, and it's in Peter Stahl's Bicycle Man collection in Alfred Station, New York. And I've seen it, and it's a pretty cool bike. There's a picture of it I see on the we have up here now too. Avatars were, of course, they're long gone, but one of the very, very early renaissance of the recumbent bikes in the 70s. I'd also like to give a shout out to the racers of the Mid-Atlantic race in Washington, North Carolina. By now, all the races are in, and I hope to have a report next month. It looks like the conditions were just stellar, and there were some really good times turned in. So if you have an event and you would like to report, please email me at the LBR website. And that's it for this month. So next time, stay on the bike and keep moving forward. Back to you, Gary.
All right, Denny, thank you so much. Really intriguing report. We have learned of a couple of more recumbent riders at the Paris ride. So we haven't acknowledged all of them, but we wish all of them bon chance and bon route, I believe is what they say. And so good luck to all the Paris riders riding Laidback. Okay, let's get back to thanking the wonderful people who make this all possible. Our sponsors, first of all, TerraTrike. From fairings to headrests, whatever accessory you need, Pat and crew have you covered. And trailside.bike. If you find yourself in Florida near the Withlacoochee Trail, stop in and see Andrew and his crew. And Cruise Bike. Their patented race and record-proven front-wheel drive geometry changes the rules of cycling. Now, comfort doesn't come at the cost of performance, but fair warning, your cheeks may hurt from smiling. And Lightning Cycles, surprising speed, comfort, and agility, featuring the superior climbing quality that you've been looking for. Check out Lightning Recumbents today. All right, guys, let's finish up with a few announcements and some news. We have some interesting stuff here, I think, for you. I had a wonderful opportunity to meet with the marketing director of Whiz Wheels, TerraTrike, last week in Michigan. And there are a number of really important announcements that are going to be coming from TerraTrike. We really can't talk about too much of them yet, but I think Marshall's going to let some of this dribble out. Here's what I can tell you about so far. So WheelWhiz TerraTrike is now the exclusive North American distributor for KMX Karts, which is a British company. This is a press release that they gave us to read to you. So the parent company of TerraTrike, Whiz Wheels, is partnering with KMX Karts to broaden its offerings for recumbent trike riding throughout North America. KMX Kart started in the United Kingdom with the goal of making something a bit different. And what they came up with was a fusion of go-kart, BMX, and mountain bike. KMX now produces a variety of frame sizes, so children as young as 5 to 7, as well as adults, can experience the fun and excitement of riding a recumbent trike. WheelWiz is currently stocking 2 KMX kart models, the K3 and Colt, and will soon be cranking up the inventory to offer the full KMX line of 7 kids and adults models. This is going to go to their dealer network. Whether someone wants to race on the flat, cycle up and down mountains, do stunts, ride to work in the open air, or leisurely tour the countryside, there's a KMX designed to do it. So that's really big news, guys. So KMX is now going to be distributed through Whiz Wheels, TerraTrike, and the kids aspect of it is kind of interesting because we've had very few opportunities to see anything available in the trike world for kids. And you, I'm sure, all very aware of how big BMX is. So it would be interesting to see a trike version of BMX and maybe some competitions coming online. And Marshall was, I can tell you, kind of interested in maybe promoting some of those types of things. So we'll see what develops there, but kind of interesting. So, and then if you can, if you wouldn't mind, I'll quote from Marshall on what else is coming up, the best that he'll let me say. Here's what he said. We will be introducing more new product than in any prior recumbent CycleCon. Mark Cruz, the Whiz Wheels GM, has warned me about saying anything more, but I just can't resist. You can let your listeners know that we will be showing more aluminum trikes than ever before, and we will be showing something new from Bosch, the e-assist motor maker, guys. There's a lot more to say, but that's all he'll let me reveal for now. So I think he may give us some more to trickle out next month, so stay tuned to the announcements then. All right, let me bring you up to date on what the Laidback Bike Report's plans are for the next few weeks. We've told you about all the traveling that we have done to Iowa and Wisconsin and such. We, as you already know, if you watched the beginning of the show, we'll be heading to Portland, Oregon on Saturday, October 5th, to cover the Trike Fest, the Pacific Trike Fest put on by Recumbentpdx and Mel. So we look forward to getting out there and seeing all of you guys that are out in the West Coast, the Pacific Northwest, and saying hello to them. I think we're going to stop in and see Sylvia as well, Sylvia Halpern. So we look forward to that. And then just a week later, of course, one of the bigger events that we cover, we're very excited to head back to Nashville for the Recumbent CycleCon, October 11th through 13th. So yeah, if you've attended before, you know what a great event that is. If you haven't, you are missing a lot. So if you can get to Nashville over that weekend, by all means, come on out. We will be doing a full coverage video, as always, interviewing all of the exhibitors there, and lots of people that are showing up there. So we have a couple surprise guests at our booth that we have there. So we'll talk about those probably next month. But that's it for our traveling. Let me tell you a little bit about our videos that we have produced. Not the webcast, but the videos. So first of all, many of you have already seen this, but there was an amazing video that was put out showing a velomobile riding along in the Tour de France, with the leaders of the Tour de France. And we caught up with the guy who rode the velomobile that was in the video on the Tour de France channel. And it was David Bachelet, a Frenchman, of course. And we had a nice little interview with him. So you'll see that video called "He's Waiting to Ride with the Tour de France." We have that nice little interview with David. It was he's an interesting fellow. And John didn't tell you, but he actually was also at the World Championships in Nandex, France. So also we talked about this a little bit earlier. InnerTuba and the Bents of RAGBRAI. So that's a big coverage video that we did. So Trey and Marilyn and I were out in Iowa and followed John for the better part of a week. And shot lots of video of him riding and interviews of other bent riders that were riding, and a bit of the music as well, which if you like brass bands, I think you'll like that as well. So you can catch that video on our channel. I'll have all these links in the description, of course. And then coming up, I also mentioned this briefly, the Hostel Shop. On the way out there, we stopped at the Hostel Shop and its new owner, Brianna. We did a full LBR at your LBS there. We got lots of great video of what goes on. So we hope you'll like that one. I will be working on that this week. So hopefully maybe by the end of the week, we'll have that video out. And also Connecticut Yankee Peddler when we were in Chariton, Iowa. Talked to Dave. And there we are having a little tete-a-tete, and we did a nice. That's a very unusual bench shop built in a theater. I think you'll really like that one as well. LBR at your LBS, Connecticut Yankee Peddler, coming up maybe in a couple more weeks. We'll see when we can get to that. So, viewer submissions. So we are at this point going to talk to. We have had a message from Rambling Randy via Facebook, and here's what he has to say. Hey, Gary, this is my HP Velotechnic Gecko named Lizzie, sporting a Veltop custom-made camo radical design pannier and a lot of other cool stuff. Next year, once the salt is off the road in Minnesota, I'm packing Lizzie up with a trailer and just leaving this life behind to explore the U.S. So good for you, Rambling Randy. That'll be fun. We'll look forward to hearing from you. And also, via email, we got a message from George Feligy. And he says, here's a photo taken of me on my Bat Trike, leading a 5K run for first responders in Lake Mary, Florida. I was the pace car for the runners to follow around the course. The 343 represents the FDNY, the Fire Department of New York firefighters, who we lost in 9/11 at the Twin Towers. The trike is an Ice Adventure 26 full suspension from trailside.bike in Floral City, Florida. That's one of our sponsors. We're glad to see you buying from there. I made the front wheel covers, sun visors, and front fairing out of chloroplast. So a reminder, guys, if you've got pictures or accomplishments or events you want to share, please send your submissions to us at laidbackbikereport@gmail.com. All right, how about the next Laidback Bike Report coming up September 15th, 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. We are going to have Davis Carver's Tie Glide titanium long wheelbase bent. So Davis Carver is a bike manufacturer who does all kinds of interesting custom stuff, and he was interested in doing something in the bent world, although he's not completely new to the bent world. We're going to talk to him all about his past and what he's done. A.D. Carson is involved with this and has evaluated this and had input on this really interesting build in titanium. So we hope you'll join us. That will be our featured interview with Davis Carter, A.D. Carson, and the owner of the bike, Timothy Kane, who kind of got it all started. So please join us next month, September 15th, 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. All right. Well, thanks, of course, to Brian Ball, who isn't with us today, but we appreciate he and Bent Riders' support and all the promotion they do for the Laidback Bike Report. I want to thank all my wonderful panelists that we introduced at the beginning. You guys did an amazing job on a tough show today. Thank you very much. And, of course, I want to thank all of you for watching. Every month we do the show. It's not worth it if you're not watching. We really appreciate you guys supporting the Laidback Bike Report. And so keep on doing that, and we'll try to keep on giving you the best we can from the recumbent world. So thanks to you all. So until our next webcast, from all of us here at the Laidback Bike Report, so long, Bent Riders.